Good evening, friends and relatives. Thank you for joining us this evening. We're going to give people just a few minutes to join us. And tonight we are live with our Yellowbird traditional storytelling. So we're back. We're really excited that we're back with winter storytelling. You know, traditionally our stories were told in the winter time. And so, you know, that's why we're kind of later in the season. So thank you. I know we keep getting messages. When are you going to start the storytelling back up again? So I'm really happy that we're on tonight. And my name is Lynette Two Bulls. I'm Oglala Lakota. I'm also Northern Cheyenne. My traditional name, Tuwaya Kiapiwi, Scouts the Way Woman, given to me by my grandmother, Nellie Two Bulls, my grandfather, Matthew Two Bulls. And I originally come from the Payabya community on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. And so, you know, that's how we know who we are. That's how we recognize each other, is knowing who our family is, who our Tioshpai is, the communities that we come from. And so I'm coming to you live from the Northern Cheyenne Reservation, where I've lived for many, many years. And we are live with Yellowbird Lifeways winter traditional storytelling. And tonight, we're really honored to have one of my really, really good sister friends, my mashke, Lori Pourier, and she is the president of First Peoples Fund. And it's just to think back all those years ago. I remember when I lived in just out of Rapid City, and I worked at Indian Country Today, and I encouraged Lori, you need to move home. You know, she was, I can't remember where she was living, maybe Boulder. And I said, you should come home. And it's so funny because she came home and then I left. So, but to see the amazing things Lori has done, I'm so honored, to call her my sister, and also very proud of her. And, in 1999, her and an amazing woman with such vision and foresight, Jennifer Easton, they came together and created this organization, First Peoples Fund. And in that organization, they honored our elders, honored our wisdom keepers, our culture bearers. And, there was something that I read, I got to put my reading glasses on, that I think was just really touched my heart about the Community Spirit Award. And it said the Jennifer Easton Community Spirit Awards honors Native culture bearers and who selflessly give of themselves and bring spirit back to the community. And that just gives me goosebumps reading it, because we have so many culture bearers in our communities, and a lot of times they don't get recognized, and they carry such knowledge and wisdom. And here at Yellowbird Lifeways, that's what our storytelling is really about, is passing that wisdom, that knowledge, that intergenerational knowledge to the next generation. And I said that, I think the last show I talked about how our elders and our youth, how in our culture, how we hold them and close to our hearts, because our youth, our children just came from the other side, and our elders are preparing to go back across the other side. So in that circle of life, that top half, that's where our children and elders are. So, to hear that statement, it's really a powerful statement. And Lori, she has so much experience. I might bring some of that up later in the show, but I just want to thank you, Lori, Wopila, for coming on our show today and agreeing to talk with us. And also, we're partnering up with First Peoples Fund to share some of the stories of the artists, the First Peoples Fund artists. And so as we move forward in the next storytelling next week and all throughout December, we're going to be featuring First Peoples Fund Community Spirit Award honorees. So I encourage all of you to join us, to tune in, to hear, the stories from these artists and their work, and all different types of artists, performing artists, storytellers, just very creative people that have powerful stories to share. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Lori. Thank you, Lori.
Ampetuashte hamitakiapi Lori machiapi kishto. Good to be here with you, Lynette, and you disappeared. I know you're here somewheres. Lori, Oglala Lakota, born and raised on the Pine Ridge Reservation. And then my mother, Marilyn Pourier, Sherman Pourier, and my father is Dwayne Pourier, and my grandmother, Olivia Blackout Pourier and Hobart Pourier, who are no longer here with us, and my other grandmother, Alice Sherman, who spent her whole life teaching on Pine Ridge, and my grandpa, who was quite the entrepreneur, Mark Jumbo Sherman. So I'm honored to be here with Lynette, and I've known Lynette pretty much my whole life, and I live down the road from where she used to live. I live up here in the beautiful Oceti Sakowin territory in Haisapa, the Black Hills. Lynette asked me to talk a little bit about this woman, Jennifer Easton, who founded First Peoples Fund, and we call her Jeffy. And she founded First Peoples Fund in 1995. And by the time I met Jennifer, she had been working all over Indian country. And she also was quite the horsewoman, and had this really famous horse called Hollywood Dunnett. And so she was competed in reining competitions all over the country. And Jeffy was a dear friend of Vine Deloria and many others, and contributed all of her wealth to Indian country at the time. So by the time I met Jennifer, she had been doing really a lot, and she was also supporting the Sundance Institutes before the Native program started there, and then it became the Native program, and served on their board of directors, working there for contributing there as well, and did a lot with buffalo restoration, in this area, and until her passing, did a lot of work with the DeBray family on the Cheyenne River Reservation, and even helped the tribe get local buffalo slaughter equipment that was there on that reservation, and helped get some land back in. My mom is from that reservation, my grandmother, Alice Sherman, but she moved to Pine Ridge when she was like 19. So Jennifer founded First Peoples Fund, and one of the things we did, we have this business model for really supporting artists as entrepreneurs across Indian country, and really helping them grow their business. But I say that work, came way before First Peoples Fund was founded as well. It goes all the way back to my work, with First Nations and First Nations Financial Project, which became First Nations Development Institute. But the heart of everything at First Peoples Fund is really honoring Community Spirit Award honorees. And as Lynette said, those that selflessly give of themselves in community, and just that, really honoring and bringing spirit back into community as they quietly do their work. And we have honored over 100 Community Spirit Award honorees, I think about 107 now since 2000. And those individuals are nominated by somebody who usually is learning from them, and many of those that have been taught by these individuals, we hear the stories of yeah, I beat at this, or I was weaving this basket, and whether it was Dolores Churchill or Molly Parker or many of the artists across the country, they would say, I wove like 10 of those, and then she had me take it apart, and had me start all over, because they really was important for them to teach, but also to teach folks to really have the discipline, to do it right, to make it right, and to then pass it on. So we honored those from 107 now, from about 54. I think there's some slides there, Lynette. About 54 different tribes from across the country. And we did our first Community Spirit Award, interesting, in Rapid City, well, actually in Sioux Falls. And we honored our first Community Spirit Award honorees there at what was called, and still today, the Northern Plains Tribal Arts. And we try to honor folks in communities, in their own tribal communities, as well as nationally in some sort of central location, to celebrate and teach, community allies about culture bearers, knowledge keepers, tradition keepers of our communities. So somewhere around probably 2005 or so, we honored 7, might say on that little booklet there, Grandma Lynette Two Bulls. And Grandma Lynette honored so many, and was just a loving person, and I think she had over 100, folks that she brought in as her children. And so we used to go down to her powwow there and celebrate in her community down there on Pine Ridge. And so by the time we honored Grandma Lynette, I think my daughter was probably 5 or 6 here in Rapid City, and Lynette was living here in Rapid City. So I'm thrilled to be here today and recognize many, many individuals from around the country, from all over the country, from Alaska. I think we have over 12 Community Spirit Award honorees from Alaska, to Colville. Elaine, my dear friend, loving grandmother here from the Colville Reservation. And I've really had the privilege to get to just spend so much, get to know these elders, and many of them are basket weavers, many of them are beaters. And we also know that we've lost many of them. Probably a third of our Community Spirit Award honorees have made their journey. So that's always really hard for us here, because they love so big, and they love so wide, and they love so far, and they always have time for you. So this is us in Cluckwan, Dolores Churchill and Nora Donhauer and Lonnie Hodge and Anna Brown Alliers are all from this one community in Cluckwan of about 100 tribal members, just up in near Haines. And those women in this picture were honoring Lonnie Hodge, who started a fish camp for young girls in her community. And from that grew many other things. And it started with the healing robe in her community. And Dolores now, through our program, has taught so many. Now through our Artist and Business Leadership at Culture Capital, we're seeing the third generation of just her love, and her love for all Native and non-Native, taking them out into the woods and teaching them. And Nora, as poet laureate of her community, brought language back to the universities out there in Alaska, and then a poet, dear friend of Joy Harjo, my sister Joy Harjo. And then we have other Community Spirit Award who are part of First Peoples. Jody received our Community Spirit Award. Naranjo Falwell, who's also serves on the board of directors of First Peoples Fund. She traveled to the community of Alaska and Cluckwan, and there's Lonnie teaching us how to weave up in the community there. They have a Chilkat museum now, and many of the Chilkats are coming home. Anna Brown Alliers is another one from that community who wove the largest, from what I recall her saying, is the weaving she wove, the whale she wove was the size of a baby whale. And that weaving took her, Anna Brown Elliott's about 3 years to make. And it's traveling. I've seen it at Santa Fe during the Santa Fe Indian Market. So those are the Community Spirit Award honorees of First Peoples Fund. And, those are the ones that are really standing up. Kumu Vicky here from Hawaii, dear sister, who's in a long partnership with First Peoples Fund through all of our programs. Started with, her mother, and at a young age, learning hula. And now she's graduated after 30 years, 1 class is in her next. And she teaches the Kikis every weekend. Kumu Vicky, every time I see her, she's working on many, many, many things in Hawaii. And there's so many others in Hawaii that we've honored and recognized as well. We have a long partnership, Kaohu, Duncan here, good friend, and all of them contribute back to First Peoples Fund in just some way, and just redistributing, that wealth of knowledge and those teachings. As Bruce Subier Miller says, we have a word in our language called wagazadad, and has nothing to do with wealth, nothing to do with money, nothing to do with riches, but everything to do with our culture and our knowledge and our histories and our stories and our language and our ceremonies. So all of these individuals, many of them have gone on to receive the National Heritage Award through the National Endowment for the Art, and Wayne was one of those as well here in this picture. And many of them are going on to receive even the Luce Prize, which is this wonderful award. And at First Nations and now Indian Collective, their Disruptor Award. We see our artists just really benefiting far and wide, and Constellations is another one out of Southern California. So I'll wait for Lynette to come back. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori, for sharing those slides and the pictures. And yeah, it just definitely made me emotional too, especially seeing my grandmother, Nellie. She was Nellie Two Bulls. She was honored, I believe, in 2006.
7, I think, yeah.
Or 2007, yeah. And I remember that day vividly. And there was a slide in there that showed me and her, at the end. And I was taught it was at a dinner. And that day she told me, that was like one of the most memorable days in her life. And she said she got to ride in a limo that day, and she got to have her hair fixed, and she, prepared for her award that night, her honoring, and it was real meaningful to her. And so to have her experience that, it touched my heart, because a lot of artists, they do give selflessly. They give of their time, their energy, and a lot of them, they never ask for anything. They share those teachings and their knowledge. And I know my grandmother was one of them. And she definitely taught, a lot of those teachings I carry with me today, and the work that I do. And, and we were also honored, with a Community Spirit Award. Philip and I were honored a few years back, and is really humbling, because all of those teachings, it kind of like came full circle, seeing my grandmother be honored, and then, turn around and have us be honored. But I try to live my life like that every day, with those teachings, and giving to the community, and giving, where we can. And so, I just want to thank you. Jennifer, she's no longer with us, but I know her spirit continues on in these awards. And yeah, there's just thank you, Lori, for everything you're doing for our artists and our culture bearers, and, First Peoples Fund, and your entire team has just grown so much. And to see the impact that you're having, all across the country, and it's just really powerful.
Thank you, Lynette. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, I was thinking when Lynette and Philip were honored with the Community Spirit Award, we had really come full circle and came back here to Rapid City to one of the theaters here in the Black Hills. And my mother and I had been a part of the Fort Robinson spiritual run since probably my daughter was like 4 or 5. And so when they come through the Black Hills, we'd help feast the runners, which I think it was like one van maybe in the early days. And I think you have, I don't know, 5 or 6 vans now. And it's gotten so big that my mom and I can't feed. And we have other local folks in the community come out and feed, and many folks. And then pretty soon we're buying just like lots of chicken. And so many people in this community have contributed to, the just sharing their generosity and, contributing back to the Fort Robinson spiritual run from, here all the way back home. So just want to say that, and we were able to recognize Lynette and Philip with Jennifer at the Black Hills Powwow here in South Dakota. So that was pretty awesome too. Came out through the grand entry there. So.
That this presentation was Lori's, what she shared was in the spirit of gratitude. And, we see that, that's part of our culture is, giving and that reciprocity. And I know First Peoples Fund, embodies that in everything that they do. And, the Fort Robinson run where it's coming up again. And the first year that we ran 400 miles, there were 14 of us, and it was pretty tough, but to see the impact that it had on the kids, like we knew we had to do it again. Our largest year, we had probably about 140 kids that we took. It was hard to say no. They all wanted to come. So we did experience that, and it was still powerful for the kids. But now we're, with the pandemic, the last few years, we did the run during the pandemic because our kids needed this. They needed hope. They ran for their people, and they prayed for the people and the elders as they were running. And, and when we got home, we heard a lot of stories that they felt those prayers, they felt that sacrifice. And of course, we did it with, the highest safety standards that we could, with testing, with, just there was a lot of safety that we put into it. But so now, we've brought the numbers down, to about 60 kids. That's still a lot, but it's way more than 14. And Lori and her mom and the community, they fed us all of those years. And then, other people in the community started stepping up. And last year, we had Thunder Valley as we came into Rapid City. Thunder Valley stepped up and provided us an amazing meal. And they came and talked to the kids and honored the kids and sang, songs of encouragement and spiritual songs and uplifting messages. And so that's what we do. We help each other. We uplift each other. We support each other. And, I think that's in all of our cultures, all of our indigenous cultures. That's our way of life. And so, and Lori, she's been like, she's played a role of facilitating, honoring of all of these artists and acknowledging these artists and providing trainings for all of the artists. But, the way I look at things, I feel that art is ingrained in everything that we do. It's like a part of our way of life. And I see Lori that way too. And she has quite a history. So I just wanted to ask you, Lori, maybe you can share an experience of when you worked for the Indigenous Women's Network with Winona LaDuke, and when you went down to Chiapas. And I always remember that. I always remember the stories that you shared with me way back then, and the power in the women that you met and you were with when you went down to Chiapas. So maybe you can just share a story from that time period with us.
Yeah, I can do that. It's interesting you say that, because some of us are going to be gathering from the Indigenous Women's Network in January. And yeah, I think it was about 23 years ago now when we lost our dear sister Ingrid, that I just had to step back. I was a new mom, and yeah. So, but Ingrid Washnawattak is Al Isa was just one of our beautiful sisters who was, I think her and Winona and I were all about the same age. And we went down to Chiapas probably shortly after the uprising down there, and went in at night and spent some time down there with the women. And I remember at the time, them really asking, how do you feed yourself? How does your communities, we described what Indian reservations were. And I think the State Department at the time was looking at starting the Department of Interior of Mexico. And so we went down to speak with all of the women in the movement. And yeah, that was interesting as well, because when we came into the community, we saw all of these army tanks coming in. We could just hear this loud rumbling. And I don't even know where we were, but somewheres in the mountains. And it was really hard because a lot of that military equipment had really come from the United States. And then the other thing that was really hard was that the folks that were in the tanks were brown folks, but the women, to go back years later down there and see their market, was everybody was wearing, the Mayan women were all wearing and marketing and selling and really self-determining, their future. So we did that. I did that work with Indigenous Women's Network, with all of them, all of the aunties from Haudenosaunee. Janet McLeod was one of the original founders, of Indigenous Women's Network. And so I kind of came in at a pretty young age, and they were trying to decide to go from a network to being really more self-sufficient as an organization. So we partnered with Indigenous Environmental Network and Seventh Generation Fund at the time, and started doing the Honor the Earth tour and campaign, and just had breakfast with Winona this morning, who came through and still doing a lot of good work even down there in Pine Ridge. But yeah, that changed really my trajectory too, in terms of this important work. We started the Artists and Business Leadership program, was really modeled after the Indigenous Women's Network Emerging Activist Leadership Program, where we placed women, all over the country in nonprofits. Because what we saw at the time is, the women were doing the good work. And I think there was the redlining at the time on lame deer. So Gail Small and her organization, took on, I think it was First Interstate Bank. I don't know if it was called that then, but and stopped the redlining there, or prevented them from this merger at the time. And really learning about that work, really what does redlining mean, in terms of tribal economies and tribal communities. And it was just, racist banks, not providing lending or loans into tribal communities. So that was really the model when I came to First Peoples Fund, to continue that good work of the other women leaders. And, Winona starting the White Earth Land Recovery in her community, and then Honor the Earth, and just how could we support women doing the good work that were building these nonprofits. So we placed young women all over the country in these nonprofits, as well as into philanthropy, where there were Native folks, just a handful at the time, doing work, in philanthropy. And so they could get that experience as well, and then fund their projects, whatever that might be, out in communities. So by the time I got to First Peoples Fund, we just, it was a continuation of what I say, of all the people's hands who did this good work for so long. And Eloise Cabal being one of those, our first work started up there. She had a microloan fund there. So we ran our microloan fund through the Blackfeet Reservation Development Loan Fund. We'd work with the artist and get them to the end to the loan. And we're still doing that good work today in a lot of different ways. So I'll stop there, Lynette. Thanks.
Yeah, all of the amazing work and all the women that paved the way, paved the way for us. And now here we are, paving the way for the next generation. And that's how it works, sharing of that knowledge, that wisdom, supporting each other, uplifting each other. And, the Cheyenne people, they have a proverb. It says, the nation is not defeated until the hearts of the women are on the ground. And I think that's so powerful because, our hearts are not on the ground. We're the backbone of the people, and our voice does matter. And together, with the family, all of the family, it makes the community strong, all genders and all of us together. And so, that's why these stories are so important, and programs like this and the work that we're doing, it's so important to continue to do this and to show the younger generation, and to create a way for them so that they can rise up and they can continue, to make a difference in their communities. So with that, we're going to stop here, but I also want to just encourage everybody to tune in the next few weeks, because we'll be highlighting some of the artists and hearing, their personal stories and their connection to their art and sharing their art. And, all the stories, it doesn't matter what kind of artist you are, there's stories that are connected to that, because art is a way of life for us. And, I've worked in a lot of different places, and one of the positions I had was working in the financial industry. And I used to do a lot of writing. And, one time, this person that I was working for, told me, how do you do that? Like, we're in finance, but I read this letter and it really touched my heart, and it made me cry. It's like, that's how we are. We're emotional, we're connected to our right brain, and we're connected to our heart and compassion. And so that's how we work, compassion, courage, and connection. And so, all of us, I believe that we are all artists. We are all, it's a way of life for us. We love beauty. We love the beauty of everything around us. And I think it shows through our work and through our art. So with that, we'll see all of you right back here again next week. And also share with your friends and family. We appreciate your support. And we're also streaming live on YouTube. So, if any of you, of anyone that doesn't have Facebook but would like to watch, they can also watch on YouTube as well. So, and these will also be saved, so you can go back and rewatch again. So thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Lori. Thank you again. Yeah.
Thank you, Plamaya, Dokshake Wachiankinte.
Yeah. Huh.